I would say let's just start with a little intro and by welcoming everyone to the fourth episode of WAM Talks. This is where I speak to one of our amazing community members about a topic in fitness and nutrition that they're really passionate about. If you don't know me, my name's Anna. I'm the founder of WAM We Are More. WAM is a vegan sports nutrition brand that is trying to do things better and make the fitness space more inclusive. And I'm also an organic chemistry PhD and a sports nutritionist. And today I'll be talking to the wonderful Mara, and we're going to be speaking about body neutrality, what it means, why it's important, and how to practice it with hopefully some practical takeaways from today's session. We're going to speak for about 45 minutes to an hour maybe. If you are joining this, if you are joining this live, please feel free to ask questions at any time. Just pop them in the chat. We will either answer them on the fly or we will get back to them towards the end of the session. And anyway, the whole recording will be available on Spotify and on YouTube after, as usual. Mara and I have been knowing each other for a little bit over a year, I think. She was actually one of the first people I reached out to on Instagram because we were both in Barcelona at the time. And through all of this time, she is really one of those people who inspired me to do better more times than I can count. Mara is a coach with a focus on functional training and also a nutrition coach. She's very involved in intersectional feminism and bringing that to the fitness space and also creating lots of safe spaces and works with marginalized groups. And I love all of this. And I don't know if you maybe want to add something yourself. I talked so much.
Not really. I mean, you covered that pretty nicely, and it's still hard for me to sit with compliments, but it's getting better. So I'm just trying to accept what you just said, and well, yeah, trying to make fitness more accessible, trying to make nutrition more accessible, and I think it could be easier than we all think. We just have to like start doing it and start being aware. But that's probably something that we're going to talk about sooner or later in the next hour, right?
Probably, yeah. I think it's a shared goal of ours, although we are coming at it from different directions.
Well, that's probably even more important, right? I don't believe everybody is supposed to do the same things in the same way, just like coming from different sides, having different perspectives with a similar goal in mind. It's actually what covers things the best.
Definitely agreed. Let's start on the big subject of body neutrality.
What are we even talking about?
What are we talking about? Can you describe it maybe in your own words? Because it is something that I definitely didn't grow up with. I think most people didn't.
Well,
And I was not aware of for the longest time. I think it is something that you sometimes think about not knowing what it is with an, oh, wouldn't it be nice? But not necessarily knowing that there is a term for it.
true. And that's probably one of the biggest things that have changed since being socialized and grown up in the 90s and the early 2000s, right? Which makes it so hard for many of us to, you know, live in the bodies we live in. And I think body neutrality grew from the body positivity movement. You saw like 10 years ago online a lot, where you're supposed to like and love yourself no matter what all day long. And body neutrality realizes that that's not only not realistic, it's not sustainable, and I would even say it's not even a healthy thing to do. So body neutrality for me means I let my body be. I live in this body today. I lived in it yesterday, and I hopefully will live in it tomorrow. So accepting is as it is in its current state today, without judging it, without punishing it for the way it looks, the way it feels, the way it performs. That's what body neutrality means for me. I'm sure there are other definitions, and this might not be the official definition, but that's what it means for me, and it has a lot to do with body acceptance and just accepting the vessels that we're just living in.
Almost not attaching emotions to the physical shape
Yeah.
of your body.
Well, and judgment to it, right? I mean, we grow up in a society and in a world where we're being judged for our performance from 5 to 6 years old when we enter school, right? And that also includes the way we look, the way we perform physically. I mean, I know so many people that have nearly traumatic experiences from their PE sessions in school, including you. And
Yeah,
everybody can probably tell about a situation of not being fast enough or not being fast as the others or not being able to climb up the rope, which I find wild that 6, 7, 8 year olds are supposed to climb up that road without learning the technique. So, our bodies are being judged from the start. The way we look is being judged, the clothes we wear are being judged. So we live in a society where everything is judged and put in relation and in a hierarchy to each other. And some bodies are supposed to be better than other bodies for whatever reason you're making up. And body acceptance and body neutrality takes that a little away. So let the body be as it is.
yeah. Because we're being judged on something that is also constantly changing. I mean, let's not
True.
forget that all of these body trends that existed from the heroin chic back to, I guess, with the body positivity movement, then also bigger bodies, but then also we had these almost ridiculously cartoony, curvy bodies of the Kardashians at some point.
Well, not
And now we're
even,
going back to skinny talk, so it's
yeah,
like back
almost
to
not
that.
even humanly possible body shapes, right? Or
Yeah,
naturally possible body shapes.
I feel like they always exist on the fringes of what is
Yeah.
possible, but the ideal is almost never the average, which
Yeah.
means we're living in a constant with a constant goal of optimizing our body to look a certain way
Whatever
almost.
unrealistic standards, right? Like running after something that is not even realistically reachable, attainable, but also, and that's the most important from my side, sustainable for a person with a full-time job, a family, the lack of financial resources. There are so many factors that come into play here. So I live in a body and I am very thankful it's bringing me everywhere and it's supporting me through all the stupid ideas that I have and all the ridiculously exhausting sports sessions that I came up with. So, my body has taken me through a lot and is with me every step along the way. So that's just something that we often take for granted. So we're often taking the healthy, able bodies for granted, and don't realize how we're actually, it's our job to take better care of it than we're doing, not only on a I feed it well level, but also on a how do I speak about my body, myself way.
And I think with that, it's perfectly normal that we all have days with a horrible self-perception of our body. But I guess that's where you mentioned it briefly, the big distinction probably between the body positivity movement and the body neutrality is that body positivity almost forces you to love your body no matter what, 24/7,
Yeah.
which sets another unrealistic standard almost mentally for some people.
Well, it's
So
pressure, right? It's the same. It's the physical equivalent to toxic positivity that you often hear in like spiritual places, whatever that means. Uh, Yoga, for example, where I'm supposed to be very happy and very thankful all the time for everything. I'm not allowed to even let negative, whatever negative means, negative thoughts exist. So I'm just like gaslighting myself to have negative emotions. And that, again, I would not consider it healthy. So it's okay to not like your body the same way every single day. I'm not feeling equally good every day for so many reasons. So it's also okay to not like my body equally every single day. And again, we grow up with the idea that nothing I do is enough and the way I look like can never be enough. So, how would I put the unrealistic pressure of myself to like myself every single day? You know, we're growing up with like, oh, there's too, my arms are too fat, or my belly is too big, or my boobs are too little. So, you know, it's not only the bigger the better, depending on what it is. It can be the less room I take and the slimmer I am. Thinner bodies are still praised and worshipped so much more than bigger bodies. So taking less space is also a big thing, but it's like the not be enough from all sides that comes into play here. And it's okay to not like my body the same way every day, or to not feel equally good in my body every day.
And I think that's a very important message that is missing in the fitness space, in the nutrition space, because it's either about maintaining that ideal body or achieving that ideal
Ideal,
body
well, the ideal
with the
changes.
with the end goal of loving the outcome.
Yeah.
But what if that outcome is unachievable in the first place? Or
Or
what
I
if
change my
there's
mind,
so,
you know.
yeah, or there's so many barriers to that outcome ever coming close enough to really grasp it.
Yeah.
So I think setting these standards or putting these ideals in people's heads sometimes can, yeah, exclude large parts of the population,
Yeah.
but we're getting fed this all or nothing approach almost from
All
the
the time.
industry.
Yeah.
So I think
Well, I mean,
it's,
that's what
yeah,
makes people richer, right? Creating a constant need for something, for change, for more, for less, for thinner, for more muscular, creates a need to spend money on it. So it makes perfect sense that we're being put in different needs all the time. So I get the idea that, again, I'm not enough and I have to spend money to change that.
yeah. And sometimes we start with good intentions and we say, oh, muscle is the new skinny, or I'd rather have muscle than be skinny, which there is a health benefit to being more muscular, especially for women. But I think we have to be very, very careful to not completely overshoot here and paint yet another ideal
Yeah.
that might just not be achievable for some, be it because they don't have the time to work out that regularly to put on muscle, or just genetics. If you're
Well,
lucky
or
enough to put on like big muscle quite readily and you're maybe leaner than the next person, so it makes it more visible, then yeah,
that's the
great, it's
point.
an easy
Visibility
target
is the
for you.
point,
But
right? Because when we, I believe, when we think of muscular bodies, we talk about bodies where you can visibly see some muscle definition, where technically you don't even need that much muscle for it to appear, as lean as the body fat percentage is low enough so you can see it. So that's the, you know, the tone thing that we often hear, the goal that we still often hear. So sometimes you can't even, and even strong people, let's take weightlifters or people who lift like heavy shit for a living, you know, you can some look slimmer, other look more muscular while they're lifting like the same weight. So with sheer muscle mass, you cannot even properly define how strong a person really is, or you can't even see how much muscle mass a person has. So that also comes to play, and again gives us unrealistic expectations to what I'm supposed to look like to be considered muscular or strong enough.
I think I saw something somewhere which was looking fit is a trend, being fit is something measurable.
Interesting. Yeah. And also, I often struggle with the term of being fit. You know, people come into me and like their goal is to become fitter, but what does it even mean? So, what do you need your body to be fit for? What is the being fit for me means being able to do certain tasks or life or sports. And I remember last year in the Olympics, there was like a page of, you know, there are so many female athletes with totally different bodies. You know, a person who's, oh, I don't even know the track and field discipline names in English, you know, the tossing things around.
Yeah.
They are often in larger bodies because more mass moves mass faster, physical principle. So a person who works in that or trains in that discipline has a totally different body than a person who's, let's say, swimming, or a person who's doing Olympic weightlifting. So I struggle a little bit with the term being fit because it's a generalized term, and if you ask 100 people, they describe a fit body differently. But being fit to me means being able to live my life and do all the tasks I get in life, or do the tasks that I have to do in the sport that I do.
And that's a beautiful way to look at it because it has nothing to do with what your body looks like in the end.
Exactly. It's
It's
about,
a,
I wouldn't even say performance, but ability.
yeah, performance in the widest sense, I guess, if
Yeah,
you're not strictly speaking about athletic performance,
yeah,
but just existing,
yeah.
living, surviving well.
Well, being able to carry my groceries home, being able to, you know, take my child up the stairs, being able to lift my body up from a chair from the bed every morning, stuff like that.
And it makes it more accessible to people who are maybe in bigger bodies or people who might be in disabled bodies as well.
Yeah. Or older bodies.
Older. Yeah. So when you coach under these principles, what what does that coaching look like? Because I think there's so much unlearning maybe to do
So much
also
unlearning.
on the client side, and it might be hard to make goals tangible
Mm-hmm.
maybe for clients. How do you implement it, and how can you make sure that the motivation stays high although the goals become less tangible? Maybe they
Hmm.
don't.
Maybe they don't. Well, honestly, I feel like I don't even notice it anymore, how aware I am, especially when speaking and when speaking to clients. But just yesterday, a client in a personal training um, told me how she and a colleague, and I'm doing like group sessions in a school for the teachers because they work a lot with um, children in different ages, and they have to like help and carry them a lot. So they need a certain physical ability to do their job, and I'm doing group classes for them. And with one person, I'm doing a personal training. I'm doing personal training now. And she was talking to a colleague about how they realized how aware I am when I speak to not judge bodies. And I've probably been doing that for so long, and I'm constantly working and improving and reflecting on how I say things and what I say, that I don't even notice it anymore. But apparently, from the outside, from the other person, they notice it because they also have the comparison to how other fitness coaches talk about and speak about bodies. And I luckily haven't had many horrible experiences in group classes or CrossFit classes or like any yoga classes that I did, but I'm sure they happen on a daily basis. Stuff like, okay, work a little harder now so you deserve your dinner later, or push yourself, or otherwise you're not, worthy. I hope people don't phrase it that way, but we use so many subtle or not so subtle sentences and phrases that we're often not even aware of how judgy and damaging, dangerous they can even be. So I believe reflecting on my own language, your own language as a coach, but also as a client, we're also doing it. I'm often like pointing it out to clients, not only personal training or training clients, but also like nutrition coaching clients, where people have these belief patterns that we can barely get away from because we're so intrinsically like socialized with it, that we don't even realize how I call the cake as a treat or something that I worked for, or I deserve my rest now. But I don't have to work for food. I don't have to put effort into just existing and just getting my basic needs done, like eating, drinking, and sleeping. Those are like the things I have to do to literally survive. So getting rid of, or slowly rid of, all the things that are actually damaging and judging towards the way I look or the way I behave and the way I eat is a first step.
How does it work when someone comes to you and asks you to coach them through a weight loss?
Good question. That happens, and again, that's also what body acceptance or body neutrality means for me in a way. It is okay if you want to change your body. I would still argue we should be aware and honest to ourselves why we're changing, and at the same time, I as an able body thin person, whatever thin means here, but in like thin enough to not be discriminative, to have ever been discriminated. I cannot imagine how hard it must be to live in a world that is so fat phobic and that is body shaming all the time. So everybody that, not everybody, but every body that falls out of the norm, and again unfairly, because if the body is too thin, too thin, thinner than average, it's rather being praised. But as soon as the body is just a tad over the edge of too big, whatever that means, it's being horribly shamed. So I cannot imagine how it must feel like to live in a larger than average body and how discriminating it is in the world we live in. So that's probably like the first step, even though I am critical of diet culture, and that's one of the things that I talk a lot about, I will never judge you for wanting to change your body. I will still ask you maybe why you want to do that and what you're like hoping for to feel or to get out of it. And one thing that I often say is something like, I will be very glad you help you with that and support you through it, but I will not be complicit in punishing yourself or being shitty towards yourself, because often enough weight loss is used as, or weight loss mechanics measures are being used to punish myself for it. So I will be gladly helping you. I will gladly support you through it with all my knowledge and my experience, but I'm not here to help you be an asshole to yourself. Because it's easy to do that, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
if I don't lose weight fast enough, I'm not good enough and I can punish myself for it. So I'm just going to starve myself or I eat less and less. So I'm just trying to be aware of the classic strategies that we learn in a culture, in a society driven by diet culture.
And sometimes it's even about control. Like if
Sure.
you have many areas of your life that are not under your control and maybe you feel a bit helpless going on some sort of exclusion diet or extreme diet, it's so easy to speak to control
Well,
that little part of your life that you can almost obsess over it and it makes you feel better in the short run, but it's not a way to live,
well,
really.
that's often the source, or that can be a source for eating disorders, for especially anorexia and binge eating and bulimia. So it's easy to try to take control and abuse it against destroying or punishing or, detrimenting yourself.
I have one more thing I'm gonna throw at you in this
Go ahead,
context.
hit me.
Oh, Zempic. What's
Um,
your take? I know it's like you could probably do a whole episode on this one.
oh yeah, we could do a whole episode on it. So first of all, I have no background in medicine, so I, you know, that's your part.
Medicine, not so much. Different
I
PhD,
know,
different
a
doctor.
different PhD, but still like the scientific background. So to my knowledge, Ozempic is being used for patients dealing with diabetes. And as much as it's being used, it can lead to a shortage in certain areas and regions for people who actually need it to survive. So that sounds like the abuse of medication to me from the first side. And again, I am not here to judge the individual for their individual decisions on how to survive better in a world that is so hard on bigger bodies. So it's a system that has to be criticized. We live in that world where, thanks to a capitalist structure and patriarchy, we live in diet culture that constantly tells us we're not good enough, we're not thin enough, and we're also looking for the quick fixes, right? So in the past, there has been so many new things that have been, I want to say, use the propaganda of, okay, this is the one thing that will actually help you to reach your perfect weight, whatever that is. So it's a new trend that somebody's making money out of it, and it's being used to again make people feel more ashamed for their bodies. Again, I will not judge you for using it. I understand why you do that. So I'm criticizing the system behind it, that we're just abusing a medication, a necessary medication for our weight loss purposes. The other day, I just read about a study where when you use Ozempic, you many participants of the study lost a big amount of muscle mass to it. So yes, you're losing weight, but in relation to, so when you lose weight, it is almost impossible to only lose body fat and not also lose a certain amount of muscle mass with it. But when using Ozempic, apparently it loses a higher amount of muscle mass than what is considered normal. So you're not only losing weight, you're also losing muscle mass that has so many other important benefits. So you would have to eat more protein, you would have to take good care of your training routine to balance that out. Um, but those are all reasons for me to, of course, be not a fan of it, because also I can imagine we don't know about the side effects on the long run. No, we don't know how that's going to look in like 10, 20, 25 years. Will you forever take Ozempic and just make yourself dependent, if not addicted to another drug? So I don't know.
I guess it also depends on the context, because if you use it under, let's say, trained medical supervision, even with the information that you also need to adjust your diet, you also need to adjust your
Sure.
training, then I can imagine that for some people it can become a great tool,
It can
especially
be.
if you have a predisposition of being like very susceptible to this food noise that it cancels. But on the other hand, unfortunately, there is a black market. And I think for these weight loss drugs, it's huge at the moment. And
Yeah.
it's just people buying it off the internet, which takes it away probably from people who would otherwise need
Yeah.
it. And it also takes this huge chunk of very important information away from those people because they're not in any sort of program
Yeah.
supervision.
Totally.
They're left to themselves with it. But that was just
A
an
little detour.
excursion because I was curious. So if someone really now knows about and likes the idea of body neutrality and says, okay, I would like to start thinking of myself and my body more in that way, but maybe I don't have the time, the money for specific coaching. What are little bits and pieces that you would tell people they can implement in their daily life, either in their routines, in the way they think about themselves, in the way they speak about themselves and to other people that they can do?
Another good question. Um, so again, being aware of it and reflecting on how do I talk about myself and my body? How do people around me, the people closest to me, especially my like parents, even though in our age we might not be with them every day, but still like reflecting on, hey, how did my parents speak about their bodies, my bodies, about food in general? And then realizing where these patterns come from, but also like having talks to the current people in my life, hey, or like notice how they speak about food and their bodies. Just like the observing as a first stage, maybe. And to add like another layer to that is probably how do the people I follow on social media talk about their bodies, my body, food, um, fitness coaches as another layer. So how do they talk about it and making changes if necessary? One of my biggest hobbies is unfollowing people on Instagram for whatever reasons. I have different reasons. But like at some point I realized I don't want to be confronted with certain behaviors and certain ways of speaking about bodies and sport all the time, because that puts pressure on me and it changes the perspective I have on my body. So unfollowing people and maybe even diversifying my feed. What bodies do I even see? So what shapes, forms do bodies come in? So um, Google the hashtag body neutrality if that's something that you find interesting. I don't even use the term a lot in my everyday life. It's just something that a behavior that I developed over time. So just find people that are aware of that and speak to them about it. Read books about it. Podcasts. I'm sure there are many options we have in the age of all the information available all the time, right? So that's probably one thing. And then also reflect on my own thoughts throughout the day, you know? So how do I behave when I see myself in the mirror? What do I think? How do I talk, speak about myself with myself, but also like with others? So maybe journaling or writing things down could be an option to raise awareness about it, to even realize how do I talk and think to myself about myself.
Guess is where do the first thoughts go when you see yourself in the mirror? Is it something you appreciate about your body, or do you immediately default to looking for flaws and criticism?
And I can only speak for myself. Of course, I'm not free from it, and that's probably also like a big part of the whole thing, you know, not claiming that any of us is free from insecurities or the idea of flaws or having problematic zones, you know, parts of our bodies that are just not likable. So it's okay that that happens, and it takes practice to unlearn it, because impatience is probably something that I see in literally everybody, because again, we live in a society where everything has to go fast and everyone has to be productive and efficient and effective, and the sooner the better. So we've been socialized with that, indoctrinated, I even want to say, for decades now. So how do I expect for it to change like a light switch within a minute, as soon as I realized it? So it will probably take years and decades to gently dissolve it, and I'm not even sure if you can properly erase it, or like 100% doesn't even have to be the standard, you know? So it just takes time and practice, and also a certain softness and gentleness, kindness towards yourself, in terms of it's okay if it doesn't ever fully go away.
And that's, I guess, the purely visual side of it. I think there might even be a performance side to it when there's like a certain skill in training or a certain lift weight you're working towards is just not working out after a specific amount of time you thought it would take you to reach it. Is that part of the neutrality as well? Or is it a purely visual
Say that
thing?
again. So what do you mean?
That if you set a performance goal for
Mm-hmm.
yourself, but for one or the other reason you are not able to reach it in the time that you thought you should reach it.
And what's the question?
If that is part of body neutrality as
Oh.
well, accepting or like acknowledging, accepting that your body might not build the necessary muscle or skill in
Mm-hmm.
that amount of time.
Sure, it can be. So I often consider body neutrality or body acceptance as something that rather is part of the physical
Appearance.
appearance, yeah, the physical part of it. But of course, you can put that on all other levels too, you know? So your, I often call what I do, or if I had to describe it in a sentence, is like learning how to take better care of yourself, or learning how to be nicer to yourself, because we're mostly the ones who are the most critical with ourselves, you know? It's also why it's hard for me to accept that compliment, because you know, it always feels like I'm not doing enough for the community, for to make the space as safe as possible, you know? So that also keeps me going in a way, because I can always do more. And that's also what probably keeps us going in a sports background in terms of, okay, I want to lift a little more weight, and I want to be able to do more reps in more time, or whatever. Um, but or end. So I think it can be a good thing to always have like another goal in mind, or to like, see if I can push my own limits, as long, and that's the important part, as long as not reaching the goal doesn't lead me to want to punish myself or judge myself for it too hard. I don't know. It's okay to be mad if I didn't get the lift, or, be disappointed that I didn't reach my goals. But that should not lead to me talking myself down constantly, or punishing myself with whatever that could be, either the negative self-talk, or it could also be like, okay, I didn't reach the goal, so I'm not gonna eat, where not eating enough might have been one factor of why I didn't have enough fuel and didn't have enough energy in my body to reach the goal in the first place. So to answer a question, I guess it can also be seen as body neutrality, but the most important part for me is to not use it against you.
Yeah. So in order to think of ourselves in this more neutral way, you said it's rather a slow dissolving of old beliefs rather than there being like, the one affirmation that I need to tell myself
Again, I believe
to
that's
go
also
more
like
in this
another
direction.
holy grail we're trying to find, right? And of course we're looking for quick fixes, because the idea of it makes it so easy. But what if constantly looking for quick fixes actually takes us longer than the longer, more sustainable route we could also take?
And I think the environment is so important for it as well. I think we would probably all have an easier time putting the focus away from the purely physical appearance more to the performance if we weren't blasted 24/7
Sure.
with beauty ideals and new issues that just
Yeah.
are made up that we have about our bodies now,
Yeah. But
apparently,
again, that
that
puts
need
us in a
fixing.
constant need. So a capitalistic system needs that in a way to, and it's easy to use the body because everybody looks different, right? So since everybody is different, we can find something in everybody to not make them feel good enough, and to constantly look for something to fix those things. You can also put that on
And
performance things, right? So I'm better at some things and I'm not so good as other things. So that keeps me in the loop of constantly wanting that thing.
and if I want to take myself a little bit out of this and decide, okay, I'm not going to keep going to my gym or work with my coach who is telling me to run faster to earn my dinner, for example, how can I find spaces, coaches, gyms, brands that are tending more to a neutral or health first instead of looks first approach? Are there giveaways that I can look out for when I maybe go into a trial class or something? Or specific questions to ask? Maybe without asking directly, because maybe they're
Yeah.
coaching under these principles, but they don't know the
Yeah. Or
precise name for it.
I'm intimidated,
Yeah,
Well, entering a new gym space can be very intimidating in the first
yeah.
place. So asking weird question or unusual questions can be like a big hurdle or something very hard. And I wish I had a good answer to that, because I genuinely and unfortunately believe the fitness scene and a lot of gym spaces are still not aware of it and work under, I would say, critical conditions. And the gym can be a very, I don't want to use the word toxic, I'm so sick of it, but can be like a dangerous space where belief patterns are repeated or even created. So unhealthy belief patterns. So it's probably a combination of check websites or Instagram pages and check on how diverse and realistic the people on the posts are. So do you only see like shiny, oily, topless people, or is there a certain diversity slash normality to the people you see? So same if you go there, do you only see like very very thin, very fit looking people in the class, which can often be a sign that the people who fell out of that range didn't stay for long because they did not feel welcome in that space. So of course that's not to be generalized, because sometimes you have classes that look like that look very thin and white and blonde, but as a general rule, that is definitely something to just look out for. I would argue there aren't enough gym spaces that are publicly aware of these issues, but I hope it's getting more. I do what I do for it to become more and more. And of course, there are options. So I see a lot of classes specialized or only for Flinta people popping up, where especially the inter in the Flinta, so intersex and non-binary and trans or agender people are being welcomed. Or there are movements and accounts I follow that focus on group classes or swim lessons, stuff like that for people living in larger bodies. So there are hiking clubs for non-white people. So those groups are being created and they exist. And I would say the last 1 and 2 years made a big change, but it's not something that the bigger chains or the, let's stay in the CrossFit lane because we both do that sport, the functional fitness spaces have picked up yet. So it often takes like 1 or 2 people in the staff that help to raise awareness, because that often comes with privilege as a white, thin, fit, already in the sport person, that I cannot really imagine how hard it must be to come there if I'm discriminated or a marginalized part of a marginalized group of people. So it will probably take some time, and rising fascism all over the world doesn't make it easier, because that also means that skinny talk, thinner bodies are being promoted more and more. And it also leads to a lot of formerly involved in the body neutrality or the body positivity people living in larger bodies now get closer to losing weight. And I understand that it's never criticizing the individual for their decisions, but it just shows the trend, and it shows how fragile this trend that we had a couple of years ago was. So it can just like change. It's bigger companies that had the rainbow flag during Pride Month, or intentionally booked non-white, non-thin, not young people in their ads, now getting back to the standard from 20 years ago. And that fucking sucks. But it all is political and it all goes hand in hand. So I cannot expect the individual to fight against the system, because it is very exhausting to, be the only thicker person in the gym, and, being judged for it openly or non-openly, but always being feared of being judged or not being able to being exposed, not being able to do something. So I hope that people with privilege, people who aren't discriminated, keep it on the radar and stay being more open towards all of those who don't have the easiest accessibility to gyms.
And I guess not be afraid in a capitalistic sense of the loss of profit, because what you're saying with bigger companies actually opening themselves up to be more diverse and now backtracking, I guess 100% of the reason is the fear of losing profit here, because
Yeah, sure.
in the end you are selling the ideal body, whether you're a gym chain or even all of these personal trainers that are selling their training programs and they're in front of the camera without a top on, like flexing their six pack 24/7. It's all marketing, and it transmits this message: if you want to look like this,
Yeah, you
then
need to
I can help you.
you need to pay me and buy my product.
And it's the same from my perspective in the sports nutrition space. If I go on the websites of most of the larger brands that are specialized more in the performance segment, maybe not so much in the wellness one, but even there with the Pilates yoga community, which is usually depicting a slimmer white body, you will not find a lot of diversity, which leave so many people out. I, for the longest time, didn't use protein powder because I associated it with like big muscular
Well,
guys.
and also you hear the myth that you're gaining weight if you drink a protein shake, but you didn't train hard enough, or if you take
Yeah.
it without training. So there's still so much, I wouldn't even say misinformation, but like a lack of information about protein in general, but also, or protein, but also like nutrition in general. I mean, we eat every single day, and it's like one of the few things we literally have to do to stay alive, but we're not learning anything about it. I have not learned about it in school. I learned cellular things in biology, and I learned about elements and things in chemical classes, but it's like I have no idea why a carbohydrate is not as bad as it's being, what's the right word? It's like it's, what's the
Yeah.
word I'm looking for? It as it's pictured probably. So there's carbs are our fuel, and we need them, and we need protein because our body is literally made of protein structures, but we don't learn what that means on like an individual level, and why it's helpful to eat protein and eat enough protein without the fear of whatever the fear is, of being too muscular, whatever that means. Like muscles are created like that, which is like so unfair towards everybody who's put in years and decades of training and work to be more muscular. they want that, you know. So
Much to do.
much to do, but also there's hope because I see things change in certain bubbles, and I just hope that the bubbles that are doing the work, doing fantastic work, that more and more people will also hop on that train or realize that what we've been trying to do for the last decades does not really help or doesn't make me be happier in my body. So I think there will be more and more. Hopefully, eventually, the chains will also somewhat hop on that train.
I think that beautifully closes the loop to what we said in the beginning of the talk. You're coming from it, a coaching perspective and working with people on their fitness and their nutrition. I have a brand, I'm looking at it from the brand side, and if these two things eventually connect and one builds a more accepting environment for people to be in, and the other side helps people to understand and work and exist within that environment, then
and there are 100
things,
more people who like fill the loop, right? You know, create that circle and work in front of it from every angle. And you know, even though we, or not even though, you and we agree on many things, I believe, and even though we're wording things differently. So, you know, it's okay if we don't all have the same opinion on things, on all the things, or we all do the same thing, but with how we say it and what we say, we still have an impact on one person or a couple of people. So we will get closer to people just feel a little happier or more content in their bodies, no matter what it looks or feels like on that day, and just accepting it for what it is.
Yeah, that's the goal. Let's keep working
We're
on
doing
it.
it.
I think both of us do. Let's wrap this up. Where can people find you?
Well, people can find me in Berlin. People can find me on Instagram. I'm also hosting what I call Flinter Workout Club once a month in Berlin, but I also do my work online. So both nutrition coaching and even personal training works somewhat well online. I also do like training plans. So find me online or find me in Berlin. I will not be in Barcelona for long this winter. I might show up over Christmas, but last year I realized how much I missed Berlin and how much I enjoy the life I created in Berlin in the last 2 years. So I will not have to flee over winter this year.
I love that for you, and I hate it for me.
Well, you're the one living in the sunny place.
Maybe I'll just come to Berlin.
You finally should.
Yeah. All right. I will try to pack all of these links into the, what's it called, show notes, if I manage. And thank you to everyone who's been joining over time, dropping in and out. Thank you so much. And this entire session will be available on Spotify and on YouTube as soon as I get round to uploading it, which might be over the weekend or on Monday.
You take your time. I'm very excited to share it.
Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you so much to you
for
being my guest today and talk about all things body neutrality with some side excursions. And I'll catch you on the next one. Bye bye.